Hello there guys, it's Joey. So this is the second of the requested items. This is a spell cauldron for honouring Goddess Cerridwen from the Celtic tradition. So there is also a spell oil in shot, and to the person who's the spell cauldron is, there's absolutely no obligation to buy the spell oil if you don't want it. But as I was crafting this, the goddess herself was very vocal, like perhaps one of the most vocal that I've had outside of my own matron when crafting something. I tend to get feelings and images, and I tend to sit and meditate on it, and I tend to weave energies together that way. This was direct, like being told what to do, which is unusual outside of Goddess Morrigan. Perhaps it's the Celtic tradition, but it had a very definite feel to it, and the spell oil was dictated, so I went ahead and did it. And both of these will be available afterwards for sure in building up the Goddess catalogue online. So, honouring the Goddess Cerridwen. It was a difficult journey to decide where to actually go with this particular spell set, because the Goddess Cerridwen, much like Mama Morrigan, is a shapeshifter. She shapeshifts through the myth with Gwydion, I think I hope I'm pronouncing it right anyway, and she ends up eating him as a grain and giving birth to Taliesin, who is better known as Merlin, although technically speaking Merlin is a title, but from the Arthurian myth, Merlin. And she goes through all these stages of shape-shifting, and I think shapeshifters in particular within goddess and god mythos, particularly within the Celtic pantheon in my experience, they tend to have so many facets that you basically have to pick one when you are working with creating one set. And that means deciding between many facets and deciding what feels best to you at this point for this person in honouring this goddess. It becomes a bit of a process, a bit of a decision maker. And I was umming and ahhing between some different ideas, and then she got very vocal about it. So here we go. So Goddess Cerridwen is the White Lady of Inspiration and Death, who is best known for creating Arwen, which is the potion of inspiration and magic in her cauldron, hence Cerridwen's cauldron, which is so well known that it transcends the Celtic myth into popular knowledge. The first place I ever heard of Cerridwen's cauldron is actually from a product from Lush, I believe. But the cauldron and her are so inextricably bound that the creation of her potion, of her sacred herbs, her wisdom as a healer, as a magician, as a goddess, is the element which shines through here. There is this teacher element that comes through in particular. She pulls in energies of lunar energies, being a lady of the moon, but it also pulls in energies of earth and water in particular. And she has an element of being associated with fertility and harvest, eating the grain as she did, and giving birth to Taliesin. And that's very much centre stage here. Magic, fertility, growth through transformation, trial and change. So there's a very strong energy to this particular set of transformation. First and foremost, we have the spaces between, the magic between earth and water and sky, and in the Druidic tradition, earth, land, sea and sky are like the three defining, and we have tractors taking hail bales outside just as we're talking about harvest. How topical. In the Druidic tradition, land, sea and sky are the three dividers, the three elements, the three planes of existence and of being within the mortal realm. And shape-shifting as she does in her many, many roles and the many, many guises and many, many ways of looking at her, this harvest, this transformation, this fertility of personal magic became present at the forefront of this particular set. Growth is very important to this particular energy. So she is a white lady of inspiration and death. So there is an element here of growth through personal transformation, growth through those little deaths that happen to us throughout life, which aren't like the physical end death. They are just the ends of chapters of our lives through which we must transform and shift, very much in the way that she did, transforming and shifting through the different lessons until we grow and become who we're ultimately meant to be, and in the search for wisdom. I talked about her roles in the video some time back now, that she shapeshifts into all these animals and she's chasing Gwydion, and there are many interpretations, some less pleasant, but many feel that she's actually the vessel of his transformation into, inverted commas, Merlin. And she becomes the cauldron almost herself. It becomes the womb. And it's teaching him lessons and teaching him to survive, teaching him the hard-fought lessons. And that personal transformation and that shape-shifting is actually about trial and overcoming difficulties in one's life. The ability to hold on and grow and not give up. And it was very, very key to this set, that element of growth, personal transformation and not giving up. So we'll look at the cauldron first, seeing as the cauldron was the requested item. So we've got a sheath here for your grain, your last grain, your fertility element, eating that last grain that was technically Gwydion, and him becoming her unborn child. And the spell cauldron itself is white, and she is the white lady. It brings in that death element, and I like how white transcends from life to death, because originally it's the original death shroud colour, but now we feel of it as more of a life colour, and I really like that interplay, because it means that it represents on a colour level the shifting of Goddess between life and death. The pale green is is her. It had to be this colour, and everything had to be approved, shall we say. I knew immediately one of the herbs I wanted. I was like, that has to be in it, right? Okay, and then this has to be in it, and I was just like, oh, it's going to be one of those where everything has to be exactly the way that, you know. But I'm really happy with how it came out. So hopefully you can see the cauldron of inspiration from the top. So then there's the oil, and like I said, this is going to be an item on store regardless, so it's, you know, there's no obligation to the lady who wanted the spell cauldron. Let's zoom in a little, it's a little bit. It's interesting how it almost has a lunar feel as well, reaching her lunar heights. Okay, So these are for honouring the Goddess Cerridwen, and many blessings.